former lowlife, but now people call me the king. Tearing it up with every lyric that I bring to the table. Because I'm willing and able, I'm in more homes than Comcast cable. I got the skill that'll rattle your brain. I'm a threat like Saddam Hussein, everybody know my name. Joe Habib's a top soldier, kid they should've told you really need to pack a lunch. My words hit hard just like a Tyson punch, so give me a chance, I bet you I can make you dance. Show me your girl, I bet you I get in her pants. I'm breaking egos and money is what I'm stacking. Joe Habib on the mic, you know I'm down for action. Shout out to Make Beats Sir and the Beat Smith and the whole Rope a Dope radio crew. Yeah.
All right, what's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I find it very, very interesting, to say the least, that the fans' reaction, and understandably, Shakur Stevenson's reaction, I get that a little bit, but I still find it interesting. I still find it a little bit bizarre that Frank Martin is just getting destroyed, not only by Shakur Stevenson, by everyone on social media, right? YouTube, a lot of YouTubers, a lot of people on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. People are just lambasting this guy, calling him all sorts of names. And I've never seen somebody get destroyed so badly on social media, at least a boxer, that is, more so than Frank Martin has. I mean, he's been called every name in the book, and he basically did what 3 other fighters did in the WBC's top 5 rankings, right? William Zepeda turned the fight down. Isaac Cruz turned the fight down. And most recently, Vasily Lomanchenko turned the fight down, right? And Vasily Lomanchenko, according to Shakur Stevenson, this is out of his mouth, I don't know how true it is, he said that Vasily Lomanchenko turned down the biggest purse of his career in a potential fight with him, right? So Shakur Stevenson was claiming that Lomachenko would have gotten the most money he's ever earned in his whole career in a fight with him. That's according to Shakur Stevenson. I don't know how true that is. I don't know where he got that information, or if he got that information from somebody at Top Rank. I don't know that, right? But apparently, according to him, that is, there was a lot of money on the table for Vasily Lomachenko, right, for that fight. And he turned it down, right? But I don't hear anybody calling William Zepeda names. I don't hear anyone calling Isaac Cruz names. I don't hear anyone calling Vasily Lomachenko names and insulting them, right? Oh, well, Beep, Frank Martin agreed to fight. Well, okay. Did he ever sign a binding agreement for the fight? Did he ever sign a contract? Because everyone loves, they love to jump on and hang on these stories that are in these headlines and these clickbait tweets. They love to just hang on any bit of news they get. So-and-so agrees to this, so-and-so agrees to that. But unless there's a signed agreement, right, that they have a binding agreement to fight, all these verbal agreements, like Eddie Hearn, oh, well, we've agreed. Joshua and Wilder agreed to everything. What good is that if there's not a date, there's not a venue, and there's not a broadcast deal in place for the fight, and there's not a signed agreement? I could tell you I agree to pay you $10 million. I promise I'm going to pay you $10 million, right? I promise. I don't know when I'm going to do it. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I promised I'm going to do it. What fucking good is that? So everyone jumps on these verbal agreements. So-and-so agreed to terms. That means shit. That means shit in the real world unless you have a signed binding agreement on both sides. So apparently Frank Martin never signed a binding agreement. So they verbally agreed to a fight, allegedly, but the fight was never actually signed, right? So why is he getting insulted so badly? I mean, you know, when all these other guys aren't, and particularly Vasily Lomachenko. Because Vasily Lomachenko, allegedly, according to Bob Arum and people at Top Rank, they're looking to match him up next year against George Kambosos, right? I don't hear anyone complaining about that. I don't hear anyone insulting Vasily Lomachenko. I don't hear anyone, right? Hell, Vasily Lomachenko lost 2 of his last 6 fights. He's 4-2 in his last 6 fights, and he had a very, very tough fight where I thought he eked out a decision against Jermaine Ortiz. Some people even thought he lost that fight. But yet this guy's still on the ring's pound for pound list at number 10. And I'm not a pound for pound guy, but they have him at number 10 on pound for pound, and they actually have him still as the number 1 guy, and they have Devin Haney listed as their champion, right? They have Devin Haney listed as their champion. And I'm never going to be that guy to come on here and say, this guy did this guy. I don't use that word duck. I just don't, because I think that every fighter has a right to negotiate in good faith on his own behalf to get himself the best possible deal. Fighters put their own self-interest first before anything else, as they should, just like you do, just like I do. Everybody puts their own self-interest first. Nobody is going to sit there and say, well, I'm going to do what the fans want, even if it's not in my own best self-interest. No one does that. All you guys, oh, undisputed. We need undisputed. These guys could care fucking less about undisputed. If Shakur Stevenson cared about undisputed, and I'm sure he does, but I suspect very strongly, and his actions pretty much support what I suspect, that money is always going to be first. These guys got kids, they got families, right? And they're thinking of what their future is going to be like after boxing, right? So if undisputed meant more than money, then guess what? Shakur Stevenson would have accepted that 25% that he was allegedly offered, right, to fight Devin Haney. He doesn't deny it. So if undisputed meant more than the money, then Shakur Stevenson would have taken that 25%. But guess what he said? If I was to take that 25%, I would have gotten less money than I normally get paid. So he didn't want to take a pay cut. Understood. Fair enough. No criticism from me. But then you got these other idiots. Oh, undisputed. We need undisputed. These fighters don't give a fuck what you need if it goes against their own best self-interest. Well, B, why are you defending? I defend reality. That's what I do. I don't hold people to a standard that I don't hold myself to. Because guess what? I may contradict myself from time to time, right? But I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not a hypocrite, right? I change my opinions as things evolve, as information gets released to me. But at the end of the day, I think a lot of you guys are frauds, right? You're fanboys, and you hold people to standards that you don't hold to yourself. You pick and choose who you want to criticize, and you have these ridiculous expectations of people that you don't have for yourself, that you don't have for your favorite fighters. How come nobody is criticizing Shakur Stevenson for not all you undisputed fans, right? Oh, we need undisputed. We need. I care about the belts. I care about undisputed. How come none of you idiots are complaining that Shakur Stevenson put money over undisputed? As well, he should, in my opinion. Money to me, if someone came to me and said, "I'll give you $50 million to fight in a non-title fight, or you could make 10 million to fight in an undisputed fight," I'm taking the 50 million. And any one of you in this chat, anyone watching, everyone's taking the 50 million. Oh, but we need undisputed. We need undisputed. Shut the fuck up, you cornballs. You're a bunch of fake, phony idiots. And I'm just going to say it because I'm tired of hearing these virtue signaling idiots here on Twitter and on YouTube. I'm tired of it. I'm fucking tired of the bullshit. So I don't criticize Shakur Stevenson for turning down that Devin Haney fight or not wanting to fight Devin Haney for 25%. I don't criticize him for that, right? Oh, well, Frank Martin would have made more than he's ever made before. Well, according to Shakur Stevenson, so would have Lomanchenko. Oh, well, Lomanchenko was already a champion before. Again, these belts are in the process of being vacated by Devin Haney. Looks like he's going up to 140 and fighting Regis Prograis. He wins that fight. More than likely, he's gonna vacate the rest of the titles. He's currently the WBC champion in recess. So I'm sure Frank Martin will have the opportunity to become a world champion. And he'll be able to get it against a lesser fighter. And he may win that, more than likely has a great chance to win a world title. And then as that world champion, he has his standard of pay will go up, right? Whereas if he loses, maybe they're saying if we lose to Shakur Stevenson, then we're going to get knocked out of, we're going to lose our standing in the rankings. We're going to go down significantly, and our pay is going to go down significantly. So maybe we're looking at the long game here. Maestro mentioned this the other day to me, and I'm not sure if I agree with it 100%, but he could be right. Time will tell if he is right. So if he does wait for one of these titles to get vacated, which they more than likely will, he picks up a vacant title and he stays on PBC Island, right? And maybe he defends it against Tank. He'll probably make 2 to 3 times more than he would fighting Shakur Stevenson. So if that plays out that way, he can get a couple of defenses of the title, and then maybe he ends up fighting Tank, right? Then that will prove more than likely to be the better move financially for him. So they're looking at the long game possibly. Well, why are you defend? I'm not defending anybody. I'm defending logic. I defend logic. That's what I defend. I defend common sense, right? If someone tells me, okay, this is a really tough fight, I'm not sure if you can win this fight. You're going to get $1 million for this fight. But if you lose, you're going to lose your ranking. You're going to have to start from scratch all over again. And you probably won't be in position to fight for one of the vacant titles when they become vacant, when Devin Haney moves up to 140 and probably stays there. So then you got to start from scratch all over again. So you'll make that $1 million, but for the next 2 years, you're going to end up probably making $75K again because you're going to lose your standing in your position. Or you can wait, win a vacant title, and probably get 200,000, 300,000, more than likely in between 200,000 and 300,000 for that, maybe more, right? If you're ranked number 1 and you end up fighting for a vacant title, right? Because let's take a look at his ranking, right? Let's look at let's look at all the lightweight rankings, right? So Frank Martin's currently ranked number 2, right? By the WBC. He's currently ranked number 3 by the WBA. right? And he's not ranked by the IBF, and he's ranked number 6 by the WBO. So let's just say Isaac Cruz takes a fight with Tank Davis next, right? Gervonta Davis is the regular WBA champion. I thought they were going to get rid of those regular belts, but apparently they haven't. So say Isaac Cruz fights Gervonta Davis next. He loses. William Zepeda probably will get bumped up to number 1. Frank Martin gets bumped up to number 2. So then he fights William Zepeda in another tough fight, but it's a more winnable fight than the Shakur Stevenson fight, right? So they're looking at the long game, I think, with Frank Martin. They're trying to find him a path to a championship. And I think at the end of the day, they're probably looking to match him up against a Tank Davis, which would be a bigger money fight than a Shakur Stevenson fight would be. It's just my opinion. Maestro kind of laid that out to me, and I think I agree with it, right? So I don't have a problem with that. So everyone that wants to talk about how fighters care about the belts more than the money, tell that to Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia has gone on record and said the belts don't mean anything. Right? Tank doesn't really care about the belts, or else he would have been fought Devin Haney. He would have been fought Shakur Stevenson, right? He would have been fought George Kambosos. But guess what? He's getting paid to not be champion. He makes more not being champion than these guys make being champion. So once again, logic will tell you the belts don't mean more than the money. Now, some fighters need the belts to make money. Some fighters don't. Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia don't need belts to make money. They don't. Shakur Stevenson makes decent money, but he doesn't make as much money as Tank Davis. Doesn't make as much money as Devin Haney, right? So you can argue. And even Lomanchenko had the opportunity to fight George Kambosos, right? He had the opportunity to fight George Kambosos in a fight that he more than likely would have won. And then he could have went into that Devin Haney fight, fighting for Undisputed, all right? Devin Haney would have only been the WBC champion. And then you could argue Lomachenko would have had leverage going into the Devin Haney fight if he were the one to beat George Kambosos first. But once again, he didn't want to do that. So he put himself in a situation where he ended up being the B side in a fight with Devin Haney. And you could argue that probably wasn't the best thing to do. And if he were to have that fight with Kambosos, right? If he were to have that fight with Kambosos and he did go into that fight with the 3 other belts, right? And Devin Haney would have just been the WBC champion and he would have been the WBA, the WBO, and the IBF, right? Going into that Devin Haney fight, he would have had leverage, right? You can argue maybe, just maybe, going in, right, in a close fight, the guy with the leverage may have gotten the decision, because that was a fight, in my opinion, with Devin Haney. And I know people are going to debate it either way, but that was a fight that could have gone either way, my opinion. I had Devin Haney edging it out 115 and 113. You had Lomanchenko winning. That's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. We're not here to debate scorecards. But at the end of the day, Lomanchenko chose to not take that Kambosos fight in a fight that he more than likely would have won, in my opinion. He would have been heavily favored to do so, and he probably would have won that fight going away, in my opinion. Then he would have went into the Devin Haney fight with some leverage. And in a close fight, maybe that leverage would have gotten him over the line, right? Would have gotten him over the line. Could argue. That's just me being, that's just me speculating, right? But at the end of the day, we have these standards for our favorite fighters. So Lomanchenko is the darling in the boxing world. He turns down the same fight that Frank Martin turns down, never gets criticized for it. He's already been mentioned in a fight with George Kambosos. Now he's fighting he's talking about fighting George Kambosos with no belts on the line, when he should have probably fought him, or it would have made more sense, at least in my opinion, to fight him when he did have the belts. But that's his decision. I'm not here to tell people what to do. I'm not here to call people names. Fighters know and believe what their worth is. Whether the market is in line with what they believe are two different things, right? But it's funny that Devin Haney is another guy that gets criticized. He's another guy that's the bad guy. He's another guy that a lot of the fans shit on, and he's embraced that bad guy role. Probably helped him, right? He's from Las Vegas, or at least he lives in Las Vegas. He's from California, but spent a great deal of his life living in Las Vegas. And he was booed in the Lomanchenko fight, right? He was booed in the Lomanchenko fight. But yet he was undisputed. You know, when people talk about, oh, we need undisputed. We need undisputed. A lot of people crying about needing undisputed. And then, you know, I believe Devin Haney was the only fighter in the 4-belt era to become undisputed. That's number one in terms of having all 4 belts, because Tio never really had all 4 belts. I still considered him undisputed in my criteria, but in a lot of other people's criteria, he wasn't undisputed because he didn't have the official WBC title. He had a franchise title. My opinion, the franchise title was like a WB Super title, but people disagree with me. They have a right to do that. You still had Devin Haney as a WBC champion at that time. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, the last time we had an undisputed champion at lightweight was Pernell Whitaker back in 1990. And he held that undisputed title from 1990 to 1991 and defended that undisputed title when there was only 3 belts 3 times. But yet, after Devin Haney becomes undisputed, all everyone does, most people, is they just shit on him. Devin Haney's this, Devin Haney's that. But they still love Lomanchenko. So again, at the end of the day, how much does undisputed really mean? When you have guys like Floyd Mayweather, you got guys like Manny Pacquiao, you got guys like Oscar De La Hoya, right? Miguel Cotto, right? Got all these guys, right, who were never undisputed in the past, but they were huge names in the sport of boxing, right? They were huge names in the sport of boxing without being undisputed. They still were the money man in their division. Why didn't anyone ever yell and cry and complain that Floyd Mayweather never fought Kell Brook? No one cared about that. But now all of a sudden, oh, we need undisputed. We need undisputed. I would argue undisputed means less now than it ever has, because now instead of having 3 belts, you need 4. So now if you're fighting at 140, in order to become undisputed, you need to beat Rolly Romero. You need to beat Rolly Romero to justify your claim to being undisputed. In what world does that make sense? When guys fight for vacant titles. And no disrespect to Shakur Stevenson, but he's going to be fighting for a vacant title against the number 6 ranked guy. Is that going to mean as much as it did Devin Haney fighting for the full official undisputed title, right, against George Kambosos? Wasn't for a vacant title. It was for the lineal. It was for you know what I'm saying? So this is why we have to put a lot of things in context. And it's not Shakur Stevenson's fault. I'm not blaming him. But if undisputed meant more than the money, if people like you idiots, oh, we need undisputed. It's the fighter's fault for not fighting undisputed. We have all these idiots on here complaining about undisputed. How come no one's complaining that Shakur Stevenson didn't put undisputed over money? How come no one's complaining that Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia didn't put undisputed over money? How come no one ever complained that Floyd Mayweather put money over Undisputed. So all these guys put money over Undisputed, right? But you pick and choose who to criticize and who not to criticize, depending upon who's your favorite fighter or not. So you guys are a bunch of frauds. You guys are a bunch of disingenuous frauds. Because no one is criticizing William Zepeda. No one's criticizing Isaac Cruz. And no one is criticizing Vasily Lomanchenko, who in that same interview, Shakur Stevenson said would be getting his biggest payday of his career fighting me, according to him. So it's okay for Vasily Lomanchenko to turn down the biggest payday of his career. It's okay for him to do that. But when Frank Martin does it, he gets called every other name in the book. And then William Zepeda beats Mercito Gesta, right? In a fight, most people I talked to said he was going to win by late stoppage. He did just what most people expected him to do. And all of a sudden now, William Zepeda is the second best lightweight in the world behind Shakur Stevenson. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. Could he beat Devin Haney? Could he beat Isaac Cruz? Could he beat Vasily Lomanchenko? I don't know. I don't know. We haven't seen him fight anyone close to the level of those guys. Guy's got 29 fights, 25 knockouts, and he's still fighting guys like Mercito Gesta, with all due respect. You have to ask yourself why. Now people are they're gonna ask the same question of Tank Davis. Fair enough. Fair enough. But no one is asking that same question of William Zepeda, right? Oh, well, Tank's almost 30. Yeah, but Tank has a reason to not fight these other guys because he's being incentivized to not fight those other guys. The amount of money he's making to fight the level of opposition he's fighting is incredible in comparison to what these, like, he doesn't even have an official belt at lightweight, and he is the money man in this division. Well, why are you justifying it? I don't need to justify it. The market has justified it. I am not cutting the check. You're blaming me. Well, why don't you complain? Why are you justifying it? Because my opinion means about as much difference as a little pebble of sand on the beach. No one gives a fuck about what you think or what I think. Because if what you think and I think is not in the fighter's best self-interest, then it doesn't matter. If Ryan and Tank can make $25 million apiece, or maybe even, I don't know, I'm hearing upwards of $25 million, right? $30 million, I don't know. It's in the realm of $20 million, it's safe to say, right? And not have a title on the line. Do you think they're going to pass that up? Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk, in their second fight in Saudi Arabia, made $38 million apiece for a unified heavyweight title fight, right? Tyson Fury is going to be fighting Francis Ngannou. We're making upwards of $50, $60 million, probably even more than that when everything is all said and done, right? Probably even more than that when everything is all said and done. But yet, people don't understand why he's doing it. But we need Undisputed. Oh, well, as long as someone's paying somebody in between 50, 60, even more than, like, in between the realm of $50, $60 million to fight a guy who's never fought a professional fight in his life, then Undisputed is going to get put on hold. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. Just like Shakur Stevenson put Undisputed on hold because he wanted to make money. Everyone is going to put their own self-interest first Money is always going to trump the belts. Nobody is ever going to take an undisputed fight and get paid less money than they would to fight in a non-undisputed fight. And you guys don't want to accept the reality because what you want isn't in the best self-interest of the fighter. Well, why are you justifying it, B? Why are you defending it? I just defend common sense. I am the defender of logic. I am the defender of common sense. And common sense tells me if I'm in that same position and I'm getting offered $50 million, right? $60 million, $70 million to fight 10 rounds in a fight that I have zero chance of losing, then I'm going to take that. I don't make the rules. I don't make the news. I just report it. There's nothing that you or I are going to do about it. You want to blame people, you got to blame the people who are cutting the checks. PBC has incentivized fighters over the years to not fight the best opposition, right? And Showtime has enabled PBC in a lot of instances for them to be able to do that. And then you want to yell at the fighters for not fighting anybody. Well, if they're getting paid good money to not fight anybody, then guess what? They're going to do it. It's just like during COVID, when people were getting those COVID checks to sit home and do nothing, and they didn't want to go back to work. Was it their fault? Or was it the people who were giving them the checks? The reality of life is people are going to do the least amount that they have to do possible in order to get the best reward for themselves. So if you give somebody something for free, or you give somebody something where they're not required to work hard, they're going to take it. It's human nature. Right? It's human nature. So we defend common sense and we defend logic on this channel. And what we do is we attack hypocrisy and inconsistencies from people who, I believe, virtue signal. So we haven't had undisputed in lightweight, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong. Last time we had an undisputed champion at lightweight was 1990. And then Devin Haney becomes undisputed. And then Devin Haney wins a close fight against Vasily Lomanchenko. Right? And all I hear online is how bad Devin Haney is. I go and I watch a fight between Devin Haney and Vasily Lomachenko, and 70 to 80% of the arena is booing Devin Haney. Right? And cheering Vasily Lomachenko. And Devin Haney's the undisputed champion. So how much does being undisputed really mean? You know what? Undisputed means a lot when it's your favorite fighter. But when it's not your favorite fighter, it doesn't mean much. Doesn't mean much. Because Devin Haney gave you undisputed, right? And people talk about the last time there was an undisputed in heavyweight division was Lennox Lewis. What was that, like 2003-ish? Was when I think Lennox Lewis became undisputed in 2003? Well, think about this. You have to go back 13 years earlier at lightweight where it was an undisputed. And that was in the 3-belt era, right? So Devin Haney gives you undisputed in the 4-belt era, and it's still not enough because there's a lot of people just shitting on him. So this is why I say boxing fans are the worst fans in the world, because even when they get what they want, Terrence Crawford gave you undisputed at 147. And now what are they saying? Oh, he's ducking Boots Ennis. Oh, he was on steroids. Oh, well, he waited. He waited Errol Spence out. There's Errol Spence was weight drained. And again, I do believe Errol Spence was not at 100%, but that's his own fault. That's his own fault for not taking the fight earlier in his career. Either way, he still made a lot of money. I'm not here to shit on Errol Spence, but by no means. I have a lot of respect for Errol Spence. But at the end of the day, you know, he was the one that lived his life outside the ring. Right? He stayed in the division for a long time. And he has to deal with that. But even now, there's still people on Twitter after Terrence Crawford became undisputed, still talking shit about him, still not giving him his credit, and still saying, "Oh well, he's ducking boots. Oh well, now he's on steroids. Oh well, that he never would have beaten Errol if they fought 3 years earlier or 2 years earlier." Again, so no matter what you do as a boxer, boxing fans are going to still shit on you. Oh, well, they do that in other sports. Not to the level. I've never heard people in other sports get criticized more so than boxers do. All right? The names that fans call boxers, the way fans insult boxers. And then you sit there and say, well, why don't they give us the fights we want? And then when they give you the fights that you want, you still stream them anyways. So you're the worst fucking fans in the world, and I'm going to stand by it. I don't give a fuck who says what. Boxing fans, to me, particularly in the United States, are the worst sports fans in the fucking world because they get what they want and they still don't pay for the pay-per-views, right? Fighters become undisputed, like Terrence Crawford and Devin Haney, and they still get shit on, right? And they still get shit on. So if I'm a boxer, am I really going to go out of my way to please the fans if I could make money first and foremost? If I'm a boxer, am I going to take a fight that I can make a guaranteed $50, $60 million, regardless if I piss off the fans or not? Because we already seen that becoming undisputed isn't going to get you recognition, right? Because Devin Haney became undisputed, and what happened? Tank Davis fights Ryan Garcia, right? And they generate $104 million between the two of them. One of the highest grossing fights of all time. It's in the top 10. And it's not undisputed. So the market dictates how much a fight is worth and how much a fighter is worth. All right? You don't have to like it. I don't have to like it. But we have to live in a world of reality. All right? We have to live in a world of reality. We have to understand reality. We don't have to like it, but we have to accept it. We have to understand it. So, and you have these unrealistic expectations on what you think a fighter should and should not do, right? And you hold these fighters to a standard that you would not hold yourself to. It sounds ridiculous to me. Why do you care, B? Because it's so ridiculous that it's unfathomable to me how people can just have this view, this unrealistic view of others, and they would never live their life that way themselves. If you walked into a job and they said, we're going to give you $100,000 and you only have to work 20 hours a week, right? And then someone says, okay, well, we're going to pay you $80,000, but you have to work 60 hours a week. None of you would take the 80 hours for 60,000. You just wouldn't. You would not live your lives the way you expect other people and these fighters to live their lives. You don't hold yourself to the same standard. Well, that's not our. We shouldn't be concerned with that. Well, guess what? It affects the sport. It's part of the sport. So we should be concerned about it. So the next time you stream a fight, understand that you're stealing from the fighter. And that's fine if you want to do that. I'm not here to virtue signal. If you want to stream fights, go ahead and do what you want to do. It's up to you to do what you want to do. I'm not here to character assassinate anyone. But realize that you're taking food off of a fighter's table, and when he turns around and doesn't do what you want him to do, why should he care about what you want if you're the one stealing from him? Do you have the right to complain? If you streamed Spence versus Crawford, right? Do you have a right to complain that the best doesn't always fight the best? Ask yourself that. If you streamed Spence versus Crawford, should they give a fuck about you if you're streaming the fight? That's all you have to ask yourself. Are you incentivizing these fighters to fight the best when no matter what, you're going to stream the fight anyways, and you're going to steal from them? Why would anyone help somebody who steals from them? Why would anyone care about someone who steals from them? Why would anyone try to please someone who steals from them? Right? That's the thing. So should Frank Martin have taken the fight? 28 years old. There can be an argument made. Yeah, maybe he should have. Right? I don't know. Does it matter if I think he should have? Does it matter if you think he should have? Right? Is he really going to care what you think if it doesn't suit his own best interest? Should he care what you think if it doesn't suit his own best interest? Or should he wait for the titles to be vacated, where he has a better chance of winning one of them? Then he could become champion. And then he could start making title defenses, right? In easier fights that are more winnable. William Zepeda played the long game. Isaac Cruz is playing the long game, right? And apparently, Vasily Lomanchenko had other ideas. But yet, Frank Martin is all these horrific names that everyone called him. And Shakur Stevenson is more mad at Frank Martin than he is against Vasily Lomanchenko. I would guess and speculate, and again, this is pure opinion, that Shakur Stevenson would have made more money to fight a Lomanchenko than he would have made to fight a Frank Martin. I would suspect that Bob Arum, Top Rank, and ESPN would have been able to pay both fighters more money, right? Would have been able to pay Shakur Stevenson more money to fight Vasily Lomanchenko than Shakur Stevenson would get to fight Frank Martin. But Frank Martin is more Shakur Stevenson is more upset that Frank Martin turned down the fight than he is with Vasily Lomanchenko. How did again, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Please help me out. Help me out with that. Explain it. This is my opinion. Like, if I'm Shakur Stevenson, right? Vasily Lomanchenko, you could argue, won that fight against Devin Haney if you want. I'm not going to dispute it. If you think he won, he won. He turned back the clock, right? That fight had a lot of controversy involved. He was riding high, right? I would be more mad that the Lomachenko fight fell through as opposed to the Frank Martin fight. That would piss me off more. That's just me. I don't know. Okay, so Frank Martin ran his mouth. Again, it still doesn't change the reality of the situation, right? Fighters talk shit. It's part of the game. and they wind people up. And if you want, if fighters troll, fighters, this has been since the beginning of time. You had good guys and bad guys. You had one guy playing the good guy role, one guy playing the bad. Like all fighters talk shit. So because Frank Martin talked shit and Lomachenko didn't, does that change the dynamic of the situation? So you're gonna get more mad because one guy talked shit and the other guy didn't? Does that really mean anything in the grand scheme of things? This is again, this is this goes against like logic, right? So if I can make more money fighting someone who doesn't talk shit against someone who does talk shit, and the guy who talks shit turns down the fight, which was probably a lesser money fight than the guy who doesn't talk shit, that means I'm going to get mad making less money against the guy who talks shit than losing a bigger payday against a guy that didn't talk shit? Logically, that doesn't make sense to me. Well, I'm going to get mad because somebody talks shit. It doesn't make sense to me. Exactly. You're more mad at the guy who talks shit than the guy who caused you more money. Exactly. Exactly. So I don't get it. So you're never going to win. You're never going to win, bro. As a fighter, you give the fans what you want. Devin Haney did everything you asked him to do, right? He went to Australia. When Vasily Lomanchenko said, no, I'm not doing it, he did it. He became undisputed. Then he fought Lomanchenko, right? And he won the fight. In a close fight that could have gone either way, but everyone called it a robbery. Fine. That's what, or a large portion of fans called it a robbery. Fine. It is what it is. Now he's going up to fight Regis Prograis. Oh, well, why doesn't he fight Tio? You're never going to win. Like Regis Prograis was the guy who everyone thought was the man at 140. And now Teofimo Lopez beats Josh Taylor, and automatically he's the man. Fine. Oh, why doesn't he fight Tio? He's ducking Tio. So you're never going to win, no matter what. And then fans wonder why these boxers don't give a fuck about them. Because you stream their fights, no matter, even when they give you the fight you want, you stream the fight. Even when they do what you ask them to do, you still shit on them. Crawford's still getting shit on after he did what he was supposed to do. Devin Haney did what he was supposed to do, right? So what incentive do these guys have to give you the fights you want if you're going to stream them anyways, and if you're going to continue to talk shit about them anyways? Fuck them. Fuck you guys. That's what they're saying. Well, why do you care? Because I care about common sense and I care about logic. Right? And people are still complaining after they get Errol Spence versus Terrence Crawford, right? They're still complaining. We're going to get Canelo versus Charlo. Another good fight, but you're still complaining. Got Davis versus Garcia. Right? A lot of people bought it. They were interested in it. You're still complaining. You got Benavidez versus Plant, but you're still complaining. Right? So even with the year that we're having right now, pretty decent year. Right? Pretty decent year. But people are still complaining. We got Zhang versus Joe Joyce coming up. People still complaining. Right? Got Warrington versus Lee Wood. Still complaining. Got Gilberto Ramirez versus Joe Smith. Another decent fight. Still complaining. All right. It's Tim Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza. Still complaining. I'm going down the schedule and I'm looking, man. I'm looking. Looking at all these fights. Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron. Regis Prograis versus Devin Haney. December 9th. Sonny Edwards versus Jesse Rodriguez. Archer Beterbiev versus Caleb Smith. And people are still complaining, man. This has been a good year, man. But everyone still complains. So no matter what, this has been one of the best years, I would argue, in the last decade. In the last decade, this is probably one of the best years, if not the best years, right? But people are still complaining. Even when you get what you want, fighters are still getting insulted. They're still getting criticized. It's still not enough. And people are streaming fights more and more, right? I'm sorry, guys. It's just my opinion. If you're someone who streams regularly, right, even when you get the fights that you want, even when you get the so-called quote-unquote pay-per-view worthy fights, if you're still streaming fights after that, in my book, you lost the right to complain. You lost the right to complain, in my opinion. It's that simple. It's that simple. So that's just my opinion. You could take it for what it is, right? Beeb, why do you defend? Why are you running into? No, I defend common sense and logic. And I oppose hypocrisy and double standards. That's what I do. I oppose hypocrisy and double standards, and I defend logic and common sense. And I don't hold people to a standard that I don't hold myself to, right? I don't expect people to do things that I wouldn't do myself. If I put myself in someone's situation and I would react the same exact way that they do or they did, and then I turn around and try to criticize them, then I would consider myself a fraud, a hypocrite, and a disingenuous person. And I wouldn't respect myself if I did that. I never said that I'm a saint. I never said that I don't do things wrong. I never said I was perfect. But one thing I'm not going to do is ever criticize somebody for trying to make the most amount of money possible. I may not like it. I can say, they're doing this. I don't like the fight. I'm not going to buy the fight. I would rather them do this. But guess what? If that's the case, then fans need to do things in order to help incentivize these fighters to fight the best. So the next time we have a Crawford versus Spence fight, buy it instead of streaming it, right? Because we got Crawford versus Spence, in my opinion, as a result of the pay-per-view buys that Tank and Ryan did. I think that helped push that fight along, believe it or not, in my opinion. Right? Fighters saw. People looked at that fight. Right? Fighters, I should say, looked at that fight and said, hey, damn. You know, maybe we should step it up. These guys fought each other, right? And look what happened. Maybe pay-per-view's not dead, right? That's why Canelo probably left the zone. Like, let me go back to the Showtime platform, the PBC platform. Let me fight on Showtime pay-per-view again. Let me see what could happen here, right? Let me fight a Jermell Charlo, right? Maybe I will fight Terrence Crawford next. Maybe I will wrap it up with David Benavidez as the swan song, right? They're doing big numbers over there, right? But you guys got what you want in Crawford versus Spence, right? And the fight did 650,000 pay-per-view buys. Good number. Good number. But a fight of that magnitude, right? I would have liked to have seen at least do 800,000, right? To 1,000,000 pay-per-view buys. But again, things are looking good. Canelo Alvarez came back to the PBC. Hopefully he can bring more eyes to the sport. Maybe he could revitalize the boxing market here, right? In the United States. We'll see what happens. But boxing's still in a good place, in my opinion. I mean, like the boxers are making more money now than they ever did. A larger amount of boxes, in my opinion, and I think the numbers reflect what I'm saying. There's never been more money in the sport than there is now, with all of the competition you have from all the different platforms and networks, and the amount of boxing that you're able to watch now due to streaming and due to the digital platforms, right? 10 years ago, you never would have been able to watch a Zhang versus Joyce fight, right? You never would have been able to watch a Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank fight, right? You never would have been able to watch a Alexander Usyk versus Daniel Dubois fight. So that's a good thing, right? And all those fights for free. So even though PBC does put on a ton of pay-per-views, ESPN and ESPN Plus are giving you a lot of free fights. DAZN is giving you a lot of free fights. Now, this hasn't been the best schedule for DAZN, but there still have been good fights this year on DAZN. Now, they've fallen behind the other two, but this is all cyclical. Let's see what happens next, right? Let's see what happens next. Boxers' inactivity is still a big problem. I agree with that. But once again, they're getting paid a lot of money. So if they do fight once a year, but here's the misnomer about the inactivity. I know it's ridiculous when a fighter fights. It seems ridiculous, anyways, that a fighter would fight once every 2 years, right? A fighter would fight once every year and a half, but even when fighters fight twice a year, fans are still complaining. But that's usually the norm. That's been the norm. Like Muhammad Ali, later in his career, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, all these guys, Oscar De La Hoya, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, all these guys fought twice a year. This expectation that you want guys to fight 4 or 5 times a year when they're fighting top, higher level opposition later in their careers, it's just not going to happen. So I think we have to be realistic about the inactivity too. Now that's not to say that I'm happy about someone not fighting in 2 years, not fighting in a year, like fighting once a year, fighting once every year and a half, fighting once in 4 years. I'm not happy about that. But I'm happy if a guy fights twice a year, top level guy fights twice a year. I'm not going to complain too much about that. Would I be more happy if they fought 3? Yeah, but it's understandable that they would only fight 2, given the fact that you're fighting tougher fights and you're getting paid more money the further along you are in your career. So Deontay Wilder not fighting for over a year, that's a problem. Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Charlo. Yeah, that seems a little bit bizarre. That's more than normal. I agree with all that. But it is what it is, man. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Not too much more to say, but we got Joe Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang next week. Another great fight. And then the week after that, we got Jermell Charlo versus Canelo Alvarez. So we got 2 big fights back to back in a row. Looking forward to that. But yeah, PBC does put on too many pay-per-views, in my opinion. But once again, there is still a lot of free boxing out there, right? Or there is, I should say, a lot of non-pay-per-view boxing. I'm not happy about having to pay that $225 a year for DAZN. This year, it doesn't seem to have been worth it, but bright spot this year is, having Inoue versus Fulton. A lot of these fights on Liam Smith versus Eubank 2, Zhang versus Joyce, Zhang versus Joyce 2. There's still a good amount of free fights on ESPN and ESPN Plus that I'm happy about. So at the end of the day, had a good year in boxing. Too many pay-per-views, I agree. But hopefully the market will correct itself. Hopefully we'll start to see more and more fights. Hopefully moving forward, I think ESPN showing that all these fights don't have to be on pay-per-view. We'll see what happens. Maybe some of these fighters from PBC will jump ship, come over to Top Rank or ESPN, and maybe we'll see them fight on ESPN Plus or regular ESPN. Who knows? Like I think the competition will dictate how things go. And if Showtime and PBC, continue to make money doing what they're doing, then it's not going to change. So the market will either correct itself or it won't correct itself. But there's still going to be enough fights to watch that we're not going to have to pay a pay-per-view price for. So that's still a bright spot. Maybe DAZN will either lower its membership cost, or they'll limit the amount of pay-per-views they do, or they're going to have to up the quality of fights that they've been showing. They're going to have to do something, because what they're doing right now does not seem sustainable, at least in the U.S. market in terms of boxing. Maybe globally with the other sports they showcase, they continue to do well, but they still have not done what they set out to do, it seems, in the U.S. market. But it is what it is, guys. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. But I just thought I'd put my 2 cents on this topic, and let me know what you think in the comment section. All right, Beav is out. Talk to y'all soon. Have a great day. Take care, everyone. Peace out.